All right.
Hey guys, a very good evening to all of you, and once again, welcome to the Hindu Insider live series right here on Hindu Youth Network, as well as it's being multi-streamed on Hindu Center's Facebook page, as well as our YouTube page and Project Bhakti Facebook page as well. Thank you so much. This episode is brought to you by Hindu Center and the Hindu Youth Network under the auspices of Hindu Endeavor Board. So last week we looked at Ayurveda food, and we look at how food nourishes our body, mind, and soul. And what's next? So today we are going to look at seeking divine in the new normal, especially as you know, in Singapore, circuit breaker is coming to an end, and we're going to move to the next phase. But nevertheless, there are restrictions that we have to work around with. Not everyone is able to go to the temples, and you're strongly encouraged to stay at home and do worship. And this could have still, cause a bit of discomfort for some of us who may be so used to going to temple always and not really feeling great just staying at home and worshiping. So let's look at how scriptures have given us various ways of expressing our devotion, and yet we can still, seek divine, the new normal, without having to worry about any of the restrictions. So that's what we're going to discuss about, and we're going to have a lot of different points coming in. Obviously, I'm not going to speak alone. We have Yoges from Hindu Center. She's one of the teachers at Hindu Center, so Yoges has joined us. And we have Ruban as well from the Hindu Youth Network, and Ruban is also part of a few other societies, which we'll find out in a bit. Right, hello Yoges and Ruban, how are you guys?
Hi, I'm good. I'm good. Kind of nervous, but okay.
Hi.
You guys, how have you been coping well with circuit breaker?
I think fairly good.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yes. How about yourself,
Ruben?
Karthik?
Good. Ruben, yourself?
I think, to be honest, I've been quite busy at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of new work from home stuff going on. So yeah, busy, I would say.
So, Ruben, you are so busy. You may just share that you're very busy. And do you still then seek divine throughout your day-to-day life? Do you still set aside time to pray?
Okay. Okay. So before I answer this question,
Uh-huh.
I would like to just make a short disclaimer, which I always do whenever we speak about like Hinduism per se.
Sure,
Because,
go ahead.
When I was in uni, I was in NUS Hindu Society. So sometimes when we talk or we give like lectures on certain topics and stuff, we as a professional body, we are also like told to be like careful about what we say and stuff. So therefore, this is just a short disclaimer I would like to have. So okay, just I know you couldn't have slides, but I strongly believe in visual aids, so I prepared something just very simple. Okay.
Right.
So that it will help the discussion. Okay, so firstly, I would just like to say that Hinduism is not one religion; it is a collection of different parts. Okay, so before I start speaking about what I do and stuff, I would just like to give a very brief summary of what we have over here. So okay, so as you can see, Hinduism is in the center. You have impersonalism, which means that those devotees who believe that God has no form, and ultimately he has no form, but he takes different forms. And then you also have Hindus, believe it or not, who actually don't believe in God. They believe in karma, they believe in reincarnation, but they don't believe in the existence of a supreme being. And then you have devotees who believe that God has a form, So you have different schools of thoughts, basically. And then one thing I like to say is that you won't find the word Hindu anywhere in the Vedas, actually. If you look through our scriptures, you won't find it there because it actually refers to a geographical location. I learned this via this module I took, World Religions in NUS. The professor was telling us about this. So that, further opened my mind like to what Hinduism is about. So when it comes to me, I follow what you call Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So it's a form of Vaishnavism. We pray to Lord Gauranga, who is both Radha and Krishna in one body. So what we do is mainly we chant the Hare Krishna mantra. And like what you said, busy, what do you do at home? Do you pray? Do you seek the divine, right? So one of the main things we do in our life is we chant the holy names, which is, as you can see here, Hare and Krishna. I've not written the whole mantra, but basically the mantra is made up of the holy names. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned that the potency of the holy names shouldn't be underestimated, because the holy names and God are one. Actually, there is no difference. That is why we call the names holy, you see. So,
Right.
and when we speak about devotion and spirituality, right, uh, the word Radha here, or Hare, okay, actually, she is the embodiment of devotion. So when we chant Hare Krishna, we are actually awakening the love for Krishna within our hearts. So,
Okay.
yeah. So basically, you don't
Right.
even have to, like, go to the temple, or you don't
Okay.
have to be in a specific location.
So in
So, yeah,
short, can I just summarize that you have been chanting amidst your busy schedule? You still set aside time to chant, right?
yes, correct.
Okay. Yogis, yourself, how have you been managing? Do you still set aside time to pray or?
Yes, I think Karthik for myself is I'm quite involved in doing pujas at home, as well as in Hinduism, it's actually like it's a way of life. So it's not about having specific time where you then have to go and seek God, because God is everywhere. He is the divine being that is everywhere and who is so easily accessible at any point in time. It's basically how is our approach to him. So one may approach him through prayers, one may approach him through chanting of the names, one may even approach him through kirtans and bhajans. So if you ask me, yes, I am still praying, though I can't go temples and stuff at the moment, but he's always part and parcel of my life.
Okay, because basically my question stems from this. Increasingly, I've been hearing people, putting up posters on their social media and saying that they feel very discouraged and disheartened that they have not been able to go to temple. They miss praying a particular idol and all. And then I was wondering, but you still can pray at home, you see, and the level of effectiveness will still be there. And of course, that comes because I've been exposed to certain concepts and stuff like that. But before we will get to that concept and we will explore. So let me just ask you, what does devotion means to you, yogis?
So, like I explained earlier, right, for me, devotion is really a bhavana. It's my attitude, like how am I building that relationship, that connection with the one being, Ishvara or God, right? So, it's through the different means, which is either through puja or japa, which is chanting. So, these two are my main means of developing my relationship, my attitude towards serving the higher source out there, if I can put it that way.
Yeah. Ruben, for yourself, what does devotion means?
Um, okay, for me, devotion is actually there are actually 9 processes, like what she mentioned, right? Chanting is one of them, and doing puja arati is one of them. But then you also have kirtanam, which is singing, glorifying. That's where kirtans and bhajans come in. Then you also have remembrance, remembering God. That's smaranam also. That's another process. And then you also have surrendering. So this is how, when people ask me what devotion means to me, I define it that there are 9 processes to follow, and each process is just as powerful as the other. It is mentioned by in Bhagavatam. It is mentioned by Prahlad Maharaj that he's a devotee of Lord Narasimhadev, and then he actually describes devotional service as having these 9 processes, and that each, even if one just follows one of the processes, it's powerful enough, it's potent enough, sufficient. So that's how I would define it. And one more thing is, there are different levels, different stages in devotional life. It's not very passive. People think that devotion is kind of boring, not fun and stuff. But actually, when you take it up to it seriously, you will see yourself going through a journey if you really reflect and introspect. Yeah.
Right. You guys earlier mentioned that devotion is about connecting and it's about serving the Lord. But not everyone is very familiar with the ritual from the ritualistic point of view. Not everyone is not familiar with the entire procedure and the significance. But at Hindu Center, I understand that you organize a puja course, which I've also attended and I've benefited, and I also put that into practice. So I just want to know, what's the significance of prayer and following a particular sequence that you teach at Hindu Center? And probably it might be useful to also share about that sequence that you teach. Yeah.
Okay. So, in Hindu Center, we actually have the 3 pillars. So, puja actually kind of falls under the jnana, the knowledge, as well as the bhakti portion of it. So if you ask what is prayer, right? Prayer is actually basically a threefold action that one actually does at a thought level, at an action level, and also at speech level, right? So there are, you see, whenever we talk about connections, it's basically like what Ruban actually had earlier mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the nine ways. One of it is actually listed as Sakyam, friendship, right? So if we go in that mode, how do we connect with our family members? How do we connect with our friends? Right? It starts with actions. It starts
Yeah,
with
correct.
and then
Yeah.
there is the thought. And if you love someone so much, majority of time is we're always thinking about them. You know, even if we go to some places or we see some things, the first thing will be like, oh, would this person like this? Right? If I'm able to bring that attitude, so as much as how you mentioned, Karthik, you know, like I think that is the one thing that people always say, there's just too many rituals. But what are the purpose of rituals?
Mm.
You know, it
Right.
helps us in that connection. It helps us to build that attitude. So even when you talk about the puja steps, right? So in Hindu Center we follow the 16-step puja steps, the puja vidhi, if you call it, and in that it's very beautiful because you don't straight away go in and start doing your actions. You know, there's the entire preparatory steps. And what is, I think we really need to sit and then look at what is the purpose of the preparatory steps. It's really to help calm ourselves down, you know, to get into the process of connecting and getting into that oneness. I think that is really, really the essence that seems to be missing.
Yeah.
Because people think puja is, okay, I just go in and I light a lamp. There's nothing wrong. You know, if you do not know the steps, going in, lighting a lamp is good enough. Sitting and praying is good enough. So, you know, I just want to touch back a bit on the previous question of devotion. Devotion is very personalized. You know, you can't say that one devotion is greater than the other, right? So again, coming back to prayer, sorry, I kind of
That's okay. That's okay. I mean, you mentioned a very good point there. Just to clarify a bit more, and you said that it's okay to actually just go and stand and prostrate before the Lord and then just show some light. But yeah, I think you can enhance the entire experience by understanding and following a particular process and go on explaining it. Yeah.
yes, but you see, even when we talk about going in and lighting a lamp, and I prostrate in front of the Lord, it's in which thinking am I doing it? Am I lighting a lamp while thinking of a TV serial that's going on, or am I
Okay,
lighting
okay,
a
okay.
lamp with the connection of the light and knowing the meaning behind the light? Or, you know, in terms of, am I having my Ishta Devata there? You know, so in Hinduism, there's a concept of Ishta Devata as well, right? So in terms of prayers, the 16 step, we begin with what's known as preparatory steps. So they are very beautiful. There are specific chants that we actually chant. And if you know the meaning of each chant, it's so beautiful, you know, you can imbibe it on in your daily life itself. After which, we move on to the actual 16 steps. So in the 16 steps that we have, it comprises of two portions. One is, it involves all our five senses when we do our puja,
Okay, okay.
right? And this is so important because it gets all our senses aligned into one, again into the connection, right? And the second step is basically how we would receive. You know, it has a cultural context. Like how would we receive a very honorable guest into our house? You know, we will invite them. We'll get them to sit down. We'll give them water. You know, in the past, they used to wash their feet, their hands. They'll anoint them with tilak, right? They'll even ask them to go and shower, and then give them clothes and ornaments and things like that. So every step is so meaningful, right? And at the end of it, that's when you actually show the lighted camphor, right? And again, what is the meaning of that camphor is so beautifully explained. It's the light that dispels the darkness of ignorance of who am I, that I'm not separate from you, right? And it's a very beautiful verse that is actually chanted, that actually, it's so meaningful. I think, you know, if you really want to know, then you should come for the classes.
That's right.
Okay.
And also one point I think to also know that many of us also tend to give excuses, right? Oh, I don't have flowers to do the puja. Oh, I don't have this. I can't go there. I don't have this. How to pray? I cannot pray. We also hear this kind of excuses. Ruben, do you have anything to say about this? I mean, must you always only get fresh flowers? And must you always only offer great stuff that you have? Or anything that you offer would suffice as long as there's a secret ingredient in that. And what is it?
I think this is a very important point that you brought up, actually, because it's very practical. And me myself, I have experienced my own self giving those kind of excuses. Um, Actually, right, when it comes to service, like serving the Lord, right, um, the key ingredient is love. Actually, I mean, not just a lot. Even if you look at our family relationships, right, you will only want to serve somebody if you have love for the person. And let's all be honest, when somebody is born, or when somebody first takes up the spirituality, it is not that suddenly they were just like, oh, I love you, my Lord, and stuff like that. It doesn't work that way. It's a gradual process, where this love is awakened. So there are many ways to awaken this, and one of the ways is chanting the holy names and so on and so forth. So I would say, right, sometimes we give excuses, like or like what you said, Karthik, like I can't leave the house, I can't buy flowers, stuff like that. When you really love somebody, you'll do whatever it takes to make the person happy. So it really depends on the level of intensity of devotion and love the spiritual practitioner has developed over the years. It really depends on that. So therefore we cannot comment, like, oh, this person is like that, that person's like this. It really depends.
Yeah.
So there was this, like, story of Lord Ram and the squirrel. When Lord Ram was building the bridge across to save Mother Sita, right? And then you have Hanuman, who is immensely powerful, carrying mountains and boulders across easily. So really contributing, to the bridge length and stuff. And this small squirrel was only carrying a stone. So some of the Vanaras were, like joking and saying, oh, like, what's the point of you carrying a stone? It's not going to make much of a difference. So Lord Ram heard that, and he placed the squirrel on his lap, and he said that what he is contributing and what you are contributing is equal in my eyes. Because when we offer something to the Lord, actually, it is mentioned in Bhagavatam also that the Lord is so great that actually we cannot serve him. We don't have anything that we have that is so, like, that we don't, everything that is around us actually belongs to him already. So we are literally taking what he sees and giving it to him. Even the flowers belong to him. So what the Lord really accepts is our mood of devotion, the bhakti. That is what the Lord actually accepts. So we should focus more on the consciousness rather than the action or the quality of what we're offering. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very well said. I mean, especially, I mean, obviously, when when things more when we have after the circuit breaker, or even after phase one or phase two time where we are allowed to go to shops and get things, but then this excuse should not come, and we should always strive to give the best quality and stuff like that. But in this
Yeah.
current situation where we are not supposed to, or we're discouraged from frequent going out, stepping out of the house, they ask us to stay at home. So, and sometimes you may not even have access to altar. I mean, especially for friends who are living in a dormitory, they may not have an altar. Yet, how can they seek divine? Apart from chanting, can they still do prayer? Yogis?
Yeah, Karthik, sorry, I just want to go back to the
Yes,
previous
yes.
point
Yeah,
raised,
yeah,
right?
go ahead.
First, you spoke about flowers. So again, you see the beauty of the Hinduism, right? Is like again, like what Ruben mentioned, it's the love, it's your bhavana, it's your attitude, and our God is so compassionate. He is extremely compassionate that He has actually said, if you do not have flower, that's fine. You can give me akshatas. Akshatas are basically rice that you put a bit of turmeric and a bit of ghee. All Hindu families definitely will have rice, grains, right?
Yes,
But
yes,
let's
okay.
say, even then, some people will say, "Oh, it's hard times. I need the rice grains to feed my family. I can't be giving it to the Lord, even though everything comes from Him. He does not need the grain." Then the Shastras also talk about. Then it's okay. You can always give water. Water is a purifier, and we can't say we don't have water. We have tap water. You can give that tap water to Him. And even if that you can't give, if people have difficulty giving water, and you mentioned about for our friends who are staying in the dormitories, there's something called the Manasa Puja, where you do a mental puja You can go through the mental steps of the preparatory steps of the chantings, of even offering the flowers. So even if you don't have any of this and you do have an altar, as you are telling the names of the Lord, imagine you're putting a flower at his feet, right? And even in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4, Krishna actually has said, I bless those who worship me in whatever way they worship me. I think the essence here is truly my attitude. As much as how we can say that I'm homebound, I'm unable to go. This is Singapore. There's a lot of online things that's happening. There's
right.
online flowers that you can actually buy. Yes, it's more costly, but it's possible.
Yeah, and even if you don't have the financial, yeah, and even if you don't have the financial means to do that, you don't need to get fresh flowers. You can just offer whatever grains that you mentioned at home. I mean, that's such a practical solution, and it's also written in our scriptures. Can I say that? Like you can,
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is.
that's a good thing. Yeah. So, further thoughts, Ruben, from yourself?
I think she covered pretty much, yeah, most of it. As in, because like what you said, uh, God, God is very merciful, and He doesn't just give us one way to worship Him.
Yeah.
He's very intelligent, so He understands. And like what we both mentioned, it's actually more of the consciousness. Like you might have all the resources in the world, you might have even the most expensive flowers, like with you. But if you're just giving the flowers because it's just what you do every day, then actually God really doesn't need the flowers. What He really needs is your love, you see, and
That's right.
that's what's really precious. So I think, yeah.
Well said. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a bit more tougher question.
Okay.
But again, I would accept this as your personal opinion, so you don't have to feel pressurized or whatsoever.
Okay.
Don't worry, everyone's entitled to their personal opinions. I mean, in this current situation, especially with the COVID, taking a lot of loss of, I mean, there's a lot of loss of lives. And here we are talking about continue to seek divine in this new normal, regardless of the restrictions. There are various ways of seeking the divine and get that deva anugraha, we call it. But people then question, right? Especially people who don't really how do I put this in a very politically astute manner, who don't really see the value in worshipping. Okay, let's put it in that very broad context. Then they will question, then why is there no divine intervention, to deal and address this COVID situation? You pray, so looks like things are not changing, right? So how can one then broaden his or her perspective to see this in a better way? So I hope I phrased it in a very politically right way. Yeah, Ruben, anybody? Yeah.
Oh, you want to go first, Yogesh, or should I?
Yeah, you can go first if you want to.
Okay. Okay. So actually, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Dukhalem ashashvatam." The material world is a miserable place, and some of the miseries that are here is birth, old age, disease, and death. So when we talk about COVID, it falls under the category of disease. You see, so when we are in the material world, it's very natural, that diseases plague us. It is not that God is just sitting there doing nothing, or anything like that. That's why He came down and He spoke the Bhagavad Gita. There's so many scriptures to guide us so that we can go back to Him. Because the truth of the matter is, everything that is temporary in this world will give us some kind of frustration or disappointment. So this disease is another form of this temporary nature. Like one day you're healthy, and then the next day you're not. You see, and then this goes up and down, up and down, up and down. So, and then the part about you saying, that people losing lives and all that. Definitely, it is a very death is never a happy thing. It is never, because you love the person, and then the person is no longer there. So there's definitely a lot of heartache, and you miss the person. But we need to understand that very logically, that everyone who is born in this world will die one day. And according to our scriptures, right, the moment you're born, actually, the number of breaths you're going to take is already fixed. You see, so that is why we shouldn't waste our breath, gossiping about other people and stuff like that, lah. But other than that, in this context, this disease or COVID is simply an instrument. It is not an enemy, in a sense that we shouldn't see that, oh, COVID is the one that killed my loved one. If it's not COVID, it will be something else.
Yeah,
You
that's
see,
right.
no one can live forever. I think we need to come to terms with that. It might sound very harsh, but I don't know how else to put it across. You see,
Yeah.
so just because somebody dies doesn't mean that God is evil. It is just a matter of the body and the organs deteriorating over time. If the person doesn't die, eventually the organs will be so bad that the person will suffer. Like we see
Yeah.
people on life support, right? They pretty much can't do anything. Their organs are so in such a bad state that external machine has to keep them alive. So sometimes families are, they have no choice, but they have to put them to sleep. You see, so it's just natural. We shouldn't take it out on the Lord, lah. That's what I feel.
Yoges?
Okay, so Karthik, I will have a question for that question is, how can you tell that there's actually no divine intervention?
Yeah,
Right? So
that's right.
what is divine intervention? Are people expecting Lord Brahma to come down, Lord Shiva to come down in their actual form, or what? So yes, as much as how there's been losses, there's been death. At the same time, what are some of the positives that are coming out from this? I think there are a lot of social issues that has been raised, right? Not going into politics here, but a lot of social issues that has been raised throughout different countries in the world. Things are coming to light. Things are now happening, right, for the betterment of lives of people. Number one. Number two, so many people are coming out and being compassionate. They're doing a lot of charity work. All of that, isn't that divine intervention? In some sort of way, COVID is an experience. What we go through in life are all experiences. How one perceives and makes sense of that experience is very, very individualized. So, my guru, my teacher, and many gurus out there currently, they are doing lots of prayers. They're having lots of satsangs. And my guru actually has mentioned this. The COVID has given us an opportunity to sit in a seat of prayer instead of sitting in a seat of despair, loss, and hopelessness. It has made us rethink, reassess what is value, like what Ruban had mentioned. Things in the material world, are they going to last? It has made people recast thoughts, rethink values, and this is something I read about on Facebook. This old man in Spain who was put on the ventilator, he eventually recovered. He was off the ventilator and he was given a bill, right? And he started crying. And the doctors then asked him, don't worry, don't cry. If you can't pay, it's all right. Pay in installments. And that's when he said, I have the money, I can pay for it. But for all these years of my life, I've taken for granted the air that God has given me that was free. And now, in order for me to live, you are giving me this artificial air that I need to pay for. What's it behind it? I think it is very interesting. This point, that always comes when something bad is happening or something negative is happening. Where is God? Why isn't God doing anything? But do we ask that question when something positive is happening in our lives? Where is God? Why is this happening?
Oh, yes, very good point. Yeah, exactly.
So God is there. He is not invisible. It's for nothing we do not call him the compassionate or the most forgiving. So what is our experience with him?
Yeah, I think you've brought up a lot of good points here, and I think to just summarize this particular portion, is definitely acceptance is the great value that I see. Satyam. Accept it as how it is and see what you can do. I mean, we still can take actions. We can do the necessary. There are a lot of medical advisories out there that we need to follow, safe distancing measures and stuff like that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you question God, because it's very hard to determine whether there's divine intervention or not, because there's so many ways, and here we're looking at divine in every form, including humans, fellow mankind, who are also extending their help and support to the less fortunate, and even to those who are affected by this situation. So I think that's very beautiful, and you actually also brought a very beautiful point that leads us to the next question. It's like a good segue to the next point, which is, what is the natural, or what are we encouraged to pray for? Material gains, or qualities? That's my next question. And I think there are a lot of scriptures, including Bhagavad Gita, as well as other scriptures in Shiva Puranas that also talk about this. So if you know any of it, it'd be great if you could share. Anybody who wants to go first?
I think it's a very personal thing as to what you want to pray for, because I think in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has mentioned the 4 types of devotees that come to him, right? The first being the ones who only remember him in terms of distress. I have a problem, I remember you. My problem goes off, tata, bye-bye. Right? Until I have another problem, right?
Yeah.
The second one, he says, is the one who wants the material enjoyments. Right? And all of this, what I'm talking about, is in terms of dharmic. So I'm not talking about anything that's dharmic, okay? Not wishing harm for your neighbor and things like that. Everything is in line with dharma, right? So that's the second type of person who comes to him. The third one is basically the one who seeks, wanting to know God, right? And the fourth one, I do not wish to give Sanskrit terms here.
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
English, right? Yeah. So the fourth one is the person who is recognized that he's not separate from the God. And Krishna actually says all 4 are dear to him.
Yeah.
Right? So what we would then want to maybe take note of is, as our level of connection, experience, even if I may use the word spirituality, evolves, certain things will, tendency for the things, it will drop off. It's time that we start going more inwards, right? And then this goes back to one of your previous questions as to what's the purpose of prayer. Prayer basically is to help us increase our emotional stability to handle situations, especially situations that are not within our control and where the results are really negative. That's where the prasada buddhi comes in that they were speaking about earlier. So does it really matter what am I praying for, as long as it's in line with dharma? If you go to a school kid who's sitting for his O levels, what do you think he will pray for? Good grades?
Yeah, do O levels, do well. Yeah.
Oh, the questions, whatever I studied for, should come out from in exam.
Whatever comes out, right? Yeah, so easy wrong. It's his need at that point in time.
Yeah.
So who are we to judge? Why is there a judgment call here?
Yeah. But something like no, it's a good point, and I also wanted to know, but sometimes when we have problems, we tend to always only look at external solutions. Like what you said, it's about a student here. We're not judging, but I'm just saying, and it's also not wrong, but I'm just saying which would be more sustainable and more effective, worshipping for a short-term gain or worshipping for a long-term gain, which could be qualities or what? That's the question that I was trying to arrive at.
Or like what long-term gain?
Yeah, correct. I mean, we all have problems and we all worship, and that's not an issue at all. You can always pray to God. But the solutions that we ask for, how can we ensure that which one of the type of solutions that we want that and the type of solutions that would be better, good for us, can vary, right? Sometimes we tend to only ask for short-term solutions without thinking that this long-term solution will actually help us. So that's what I was trying to arrive at. So would you then think qualities is a good solution?
Should I go?
Yes, go ahead. You.
Okay. From my point of view and what I follow, qualities, right? Qualities. It is mentioned in Bhagavatam that one who actually serves the Lord, right? All the good qualities of the gods, the different gods, actually start to reside in him or her. So qualities are actually a byproduct. However, when it comes to what we actually pray for, worship for, I would like to just quote this event from Bhagavatam as well, where Dhruva Maharaj, he's a small child, 5 years old. He goes to the forest, and he actually in the beginning he wants a kingdom that is even more bigger than his father's. He was a prince, okay, so he wants a kingdom bigger than the king, and he goes to the forest, and Narada Muni comes along the way and says that, okay, if you want your desires to be satisfied, then you worship Lord Narayana, you do this, you serve him and stuff like that. But when Dhruva Maharaj starts to serve, without him realizing, he experiences a spiritual happiness that that supersedes the material happiness. You see, that's the main point here. So it really depends on what our desire is. For some people, they practice Hinduism to get good karma because they want to go to the heavenly planets to enjoy more. That's another goal. Then you also have like people who are interested in going to the spiritual world to associate directly with the Lord. So it really depends on what your desire is. So according to your desire, you will pray for that. So like what Yogesh said, it's very hard to like tell people like, oh, you should be praying for this, you should be praying for that. But personally, I would say that it's better to pray for long-term goals because honestly, we want good things to last for a long time. We don't want it to be a short thing, then you pray again for something else and stuff like that. So all the pure devotees, all the great souls, they've all prayed one thing in common is that they've prayed to the Lord that please continue to give me your service forever. See? So if you ask me, that would be my answer.
Yeah, very well said. Okay, now we have a question from Sajita Gopalan. Can we just sit and offer our prayers to him with full heart? Would that suffice? That's the question. And I think we briefly did address that question earlier. And the answer is yes, you can. And there's something called the Manasa Puja that you need to. Maybe Yogesh, you want to elaborate a bit more about the Manasa Puja?
So the Manasa Puja is basically more like a mental kind of a prayer that we can actually offer to God, to Ishvara. So for example, right, in Hindu Center, I'm also involved in the Bhakti group. So we have our monthly bhajans. So before COVID-19 hit us, we used to have our pujas and then we'll have our bhajans, right, in the center itself. But since COVID-19, we are unable to do that. So what we have started to do, and even in the Lalita Sahasranamam chanting that takes place every full moon, we have a Manasa Puja before we start our chant. So it's basically the steps that you will literally do physically. You do it in a mental way, and you dedicate all your actions to the God that you're actually praying to or you're connecting to. So as long as there is, I guess that the importance here is why we actually have a physical form in front of us is because the mental form is quite difficult to do. To have, unless you have that single focusedness, it becomes difficult to do. So the physical actions of puja literally helps to train the mind to be aligned. So basically where our thoughts, our words and our actions become aligned. So that's what the physical puja does. And eventually, for some people, that drops off and they're able to go into the mental worship.
And Ruban, you mentioned earlier about chanting, right? At the start of the conversation, you started off sharing about chanting, Hare Krishna, the mantra, and stuff like that. But even as you do chanting, or even as we do the Manasa Puja, I think the greatest challenge that many would face would be preventing other thoughts from coming. When you sit in for prayer, no matter as much as say, okay, no, I'm trying to focus, I'm trying to chant, you always have distractions. And I think Yogis also did mention that at the start. How can one train the mind to prevent these thoughts from coming in? I mean, the previous few episodes ago, when we spoke about Vedic yoga, we did touch about this, but I think it might be useful again to share with our viewers who may not have watched that episode on how we can train your mind, or in your personal experience, how do you train your mind? Rupan, Yogis, anybody?
Okay, shall I go first, Yogesh?
Yes, go ahead.
In my own daily chanting experience, right? Waking up early in the morning is the best, really. I would say that this is a very universal principle. Even if you want to just go for a workout or just want to study for your exams, that waking up and chanting or studying early in the morning, especially from we call this like Brahma Muhurtam, 4 to 6 a.m. before sunrise, is the best and the most conducive time for any spiritual activity. So because in the scriptures it is mentioned that the mind is in different modes across the day. So in the morning it's in a mode of goodness, in the afternoon it's in a mode of passion, and then in the evening and night it's in a mode of ignorance. So the mode of goodness is most conducive for spirituality. Therefore, it is always advised to actually try to do most of your spirituality in the morning. So that way, your mind won't be so agitated. When it's in the mode of passion and ignorance, the mind tends to be more flickering here and there everywhere. So, yeah.
But I think waking up early in the morning at between 4:30 and
Yeah.
6 o'clock can be a great challenge for youth in particular.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
many
yeah.
of the young viewers are like, oh no, 4:30.
I think,
Probably that's
okay,
the time
then
that they'll be going to bed.
yeah, it's true. No, it's true. Even for me, so I mean, I'm saying so much of things, but even I find it very difficult waking up in the morning at that time. Another thing I do personally is also I read the scriptures because I feel that when you do a spiritual practice, right, it's very important to know what's the purpose behind it. Yeah, I mean, not only spiritual practice, whatever you do in life, it's very important to know why you're doing it. If you're just doing it for the sake of it, right, you will eventually lose the enthusiasm. But if you know that I'm doing this for this goal, then the goal actually drives you, you see, and then you will eventually train your mind to focus. So the mind is to be trained. And then there is this Krishna mentions about this chariot and the five horses in the Bhagavad Gita. You know, the five horses represents the five senses, and then the rein is the mind, right? And then who is holding on to the rein is the intelligence. So if you make this intelligence stronger spiritually by reading, by discussing with your fellow devotee friends, then gradually, it's a gradual process, then your intelligence will be able to control your mind better over time. So it goes hand in hand. What you're doing in practice, and then your theory, your philosophy has to be strong as well, not just do for the sake of doing. Yeah,
Well said. Yogesh?
yeah.
I think Ruben has put it very nicely. I guess it's also about when you're actually planning to do your meditation matters. If you're going to do it at the end of the day, when you have just had the whole day has just gone by, so many thoughts, so many interactions you have had, worldly interactions. It takes a lot to actually go within. So basically, meditation is about going within, contemplating on what the scriptures have said in terms of what the philosophies are actually saying. So one of my teachers have also recommended doing it in the morning. Of course, if 4 to 6 is definitely difficult, then anytime that you wake up, right? At that time, you have your bath and all, and sit and do the meditation process. But I think even before that is actually the breath control, because you see,
Breathing.
I'm not too sure how much is it that we can control the mind and the thoughts. Because the more you say, I do not want to have a thought, the thought is going to come. Sometimes in psychology they'll say, do not think of a green elephant in the middle of the room. Okay, then you think of green
Okay.
elephant, right? So the more you say you do not want something, the more it's going to occur. So it is about just letting it come and letting it go. What happens is that when a thought comes, do I get distracted and do I then start focusing on that thought instead of my breathing? And even if you look in when someone gets anxious, the first thing that goes off rhythm is definitely the breathing. That is why pranayama is very, very important, right? Another teacher had also just recommended that just focus on your breathing, watch your breath in and out. That focus, it becomes a one-pointed focus. That is what meditation is. And that is what will help for the knowledge to then sit in. If your mind is always like that, always, right? You can have the most fantastic teacher teaching you, and it will come. But like one of my teachers in Hindu Center, he says, then it becomes academic pursuit. It's not a spiritual pursuit. So what is it that we want?
Yeah.
Knowing the value, knowing the goal behind it, and definitely pranayama helps, right? And we need to give it time. I think in this fast-paced life, maybe in Singapore, where everything we get at a touch of a button, we want meditation to come at a touch of a button.
Yeah, yeah, that's
20
true.
years I'm not doing it, 30 over years I'm not doing it. I just sit down, okay, I want it to come immediately with a snap of a finger. It's not going to. It needs
It's
effort.
just a matter of practice and effort. That's very, very, very good point. Now we have another question here. What are your thoughts from Sumita Krishnan? What are your thoughts on seeking divine based on fear versus love? I mean, sometimes we do hear statements like, if you do this, God will punish you. And I think that's a very good point. Many of us tend to leave or hear this, grown up, don't do this. God will punish you. That's very true, actually. So there's this God fearing attitude, right? And is it something that's correct, or is it totally different from what the scriptures actually say?
Yogesh, you wanna?
Okay, so you want to go first, Ruben?
No, please, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think if you're talking about a young child, right, there's always the element of maybe instilling that fear needs to come in, right? So, but is it that the person then stays with that fear throughout their life, or does that then change with the understanding? I think we need to be mindful. It's not just in terms of seeking the divine, but even in terms of secular knowledge at times, or in terms of feeding a young child. When a small child doesn't want to eat, I've heard my mom. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing. She tells her grandchildren, oh, if you're not going to eat, the police uncles are going to come and get you. It helps in getting them to eat at a certain age. But once you go past that age, that fear doesn't work anymore. Right? But of course, if you're asking me, seeking divine based on love supersedes any time, because when your love is there, nothing shakes that foundation. But when there is fear, anything can shake that foundation. So, what is it that we want our children to grow up on? It's as much as how I think I've been brought up also, with my grandparents saying, இது செய்யாத சாமி கண்ணு குத்திடும் and things like that, right? So it makes you think twice before you commit an error. Is that wrong? But there needs to be an explanation behind it, and until what age?
Right. But because I guess,
Yeah,
Ruben.
Yeah, as in, I agree with her. Actually, it really depends on age. Actually, that was the answer that I was going to say, because I mean, I was a very naughty kid. So when my mom wanted me to go to the temple and stuff, she used to do it by the fear method. And actually, believe it or not, at one point and she continued, and then when I started, when I reached like 16 plus, then it kind of turned into frustration. The fear actually became frustration, and then I actually left Hinduism for a while. Yeah, as in left meaning I wasn't interested.
Stop practicing.
Yeah, stop practicing. Because it wasn't a source of enjoyment for me. No one likes to be afraid, to be honest. No one likes to be afraid. So it has to gradually transform from fear to love. Fear because in the beginning, a child will not be able to understand that, what is God, the concept of me, my relationship with God, and all these very deep things will not really sink in so fast. So as a fast method, just to get the child going first, or if you do this will happen, like that. It's effective, but it's not very healthy.
Yeah, I guess this transformation needs to happen rather than just saying it'll be good. I think it needs to happen because what happens is, especially adults and seniors, I increasingly hear comments from them. Oh, I didn't go to temple on Tuesday. That's why now this has happened to me. Oh, I didn't offer this light. That's why this has happened to me. It's a very, very common statement that you hear from adults and seniors, and it causes stress for them. And to be very honest, I think it also causes stress to those who are around there. So what's your take on that, Ruben, Yoges?
I mean, okay, yeah, it's true. I've heard this before. Like they say without them realizing, they feel that if they don't go to the temple, it's not right. So this is where I believe that religion or spirituality shouldn't be an ethical or moral thing. Many people say that my religion is my moral compass. It's a good thing. It's not bad. But then there's always the argument that I can be an atheist, but I can be a very moral person as well. I mean, what's wrong? I don't need God to be a moral person in that sense. So like sometimes, like these old people, when because of tradition and habit, they think that going to the temple, if as long as I go to the temple, God will take care of everything will be fine. Once I stop going, then he withdraws his insurance for me, and then things start going bad. But the truth is, actually bad things and good things happen because of our karma. Honestly, it's got nothing to do with going to the temple whatsoever. If you have good karma, good things will happen. If you have bad karma, not so good things will happen to you. So what should connect us to the temple should be love more than, because it will be the case that the reverse will be somebody goes through a very tough time in their life, so they think that, oh, I'm going to a temple but I'm still suffering, so what's the point? And then they give up, they stop the connection with God. because their deal is broken, you see. Yeah, so that's the danger.
Yoges?
I think Ruben actually has brought up a very important aspect as to I've heard many people leaving Hinduism just based on that basis itself. I prayed, but yet something happened. A dear one passed away. So what's the point of prayers, right? I guess this is where then maybe we may want to look a bit into the karma principle of the punya and papa that Ruben had also spoken about. For every action, and here action doesn't just mean physical action, it's in terms of our thoughts, in terms of our words, in terms of our physical action. So there are three modes of action. For every action, there's always results, and there are two types of results that come about. One is the seen, and the other one is the unseen. With the unseen, there's then the papa and punya, so basically the merits and the demerits that is there. And it's the papa and punya that then creates these comfortable or uncomfortable situations that we go through, right? At the same time, all of us have a bank account of this punya and papa, right? Which is basically known as the sanchita karma. And the experiences that we are currently going through is our what is known as a prarabdha karma, right? And then the agami karma comes in. So agami karma is basically duties that I actually need to do. And in one of it, puja is definitely one of the 5 main duties.
Deva Yajna, they call it, right?
Deva Yajna, under the Panchamaha Yajna portion,
Yeah.
right? So, and it's interesting because is it true that only if I go to temple on Tuesday and Friday that God hears me? So if I go to temple on a Monday, but you see, we cannot deny the experiences of people, because there's also the other aspect where they will say, if you pray to a certain deity on a specific day, the palan or the fruits or the benefits is 10 times or 100 times or multifold compared to you do it on another day. It's simply as, Karthik, if it's your birthday today and I wish you happy birthday, how would you feel? Compared to 1 month before, 1 month later, and I wish you happy birthday, you'll be like, oh, okay.
I'll accept it, but I wouldn't be excited. Yeah, true.
Then what we are doing is we are then putting all these human tendencies onto Ishvara, right? But I guess it's again going back to our connections and making sense of things. So as much as how Papa Punya is there, the importance of doing puja. Yes, I can't go to the temple. I miss going to the temple. Does that mean that I cannot offer that bhakti, that devotion at my altar? If I do not have an altar, can't I do it at a space that I can create for myself? And if I just put that in my request to God to say that, please forgive me. There's so many chants that are out there. Each one so beautiful. There's a forgiveness prayer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the mantras, or basically the shlokas, and the stotrams that one can actually chant. And all of this definitely has benefits, because either one, it increases our punya bank account, or it helps us to kind of neutralize the papa that we are doing. We really do not know, how much punya and papa I'm having in my bank account. So doing all the good deeds, praying, chanting, charity, all of it is going to help me in it. It's either I'm going to have increased happiness, or there's going to be decreased sorrow because of these things.
Right. I think you have raised a lot of good points for not just for the viewers, even for myself to think about and really guide our thinking and determine our next actions. I think today we covered a lot of points. I mean, and they are all very relevant and current. Actually, there's another question right here that I would like to take. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Before I
sure.
provide a summary. Sharamana Kumar, if I believe that's his name, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. I think what was missing from earlier generation is religion was taught as a transaction. Go pray before exams and you will breeze through. I think the idea of religion, faith, rituals needs to be explained to kids in a different way. It should be thought as a way of life and how it helps in building your mind and thoughts that shapes your life. Any views on his comment? Thank you so much, Ravana Kumar. Any views?
I think definitely. Ruben, you don't mind if I go?
No, please, man, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, being in Singapore, there's a lot of good work that's being done at community level. We have Project Bhakti that is doing this aspect of bringing Hinduism to kids in a very fun manner. We also, in Hindu Center, we also have the Bala Gurukulam, where such rituals and such explanations are given, and it's all targeted at different um, age groups. So for the younger kids, you can't be actually explaining too much into detail. So that's where the Puranic stories comes in, and it's not just about talking about the stories, but it's more in terms of explaining the values to a certain extent, right? And then seeing how can it be imbibed within oneself. Then for the bit more older children, that's when a bit more of the theory part comes in. But all of it actually has the aspect of that doing the explanation part. But what I would want to caution listeners out there, and even for us, eventually is you can't expect the children to go off and learn all this for 2 hours in a week, and then come back to a house when none of this is spoken about, or they do
Yeah.
not experience it with their family. It
That's true.
needs
That's
to
true.
be like what the person said. It is definitely a way of life. It's how do I involve my children into this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they got to then the family engage in it. Earlier there's this viewer who had commented saying Neela Natesan, who had said she had commented about the Project Bhakti, and she said her kids are able to articulate the mantras without even looking at the book, but she can't pronounce the mantras. I think this is where
Wow.
the point that you mentioned is so relevant to then make this as a family activity. Together you can sit together, and especially in this current setting where there's more opportunities for you to engage in family activities, then these are the things that you can actually engage in. Sit together, listen to some audio clips that has accurate recital of the mantras, and then say it together, and spread the love of devotion. I think that's a very, very beautiful thing. So just to summarize what we have discussed today, I think we are at the 56 minute mark. So it's about time that we start summarizing. So earlier we began this entire discussion of really thinking through what does prayer mean and what does devotion mean. And I think we can confidently conclude that prayer and devotion is all about expressing your love to God. And this does not just require you to offer fresh flowers or fresh food, but you can offer anything, even a rice grain, as long as it's offered with love. That would suffice, and that matters. And in terms of needs, you can pray for any needs that you want, as long as they are dharmic and before the eyes of the God. All devotees are the same, regardless of whether you want to seek knowledge. If you're a knowledge seeker, or if you're just a short-term gain seeker, whatever it is, you are still treated the same. It's just that if you ask for something, if you seek the knowledge, you'll be a bit more independent. And then there's also this point brought up by Ruban about acceptance. In this current situation, many of us might be undoing various type of circumstances and experiences, and not everything may be comfortable. So acceptance is something that we need to take into consideration, and we're going to set and we need to cultivate the habit of regular prayer, right? So that to sustain the connection. And the point that you mentioned here is to and then you said, you can probably pray early in the morning. 4:36 is like a good time where you can focus, and then it's like, oh no, it's going to be quite tough for you to probably go to bed at 4:30. And you mentioned something is the impetus that matters the most, the goal. What is it that you really want, the spiritual goal? That's very important. And then Yoges, you also mentioned about you don't need to always just do rituals processes in how it's being said, but if you have no access to altar space or the necessary items to perform the prayer, you can always work on the Manasa Puja. That's a good point that you brought up. And to sustain in your meditation, or even during the mental prayer, it's really about bringing yourself and focusing, and it takes time. So don't be harsh on yourself if you get distracted. As long as you don't entertain that thought, that would be fine. You mentioned, and then of course, then we spoke about karma and etc., which is also a very good point. And then you said, under the Pancha Mahayajnas, Deva Yajna is one of the duty that we should do. So regardless of whatever circumstances it is, we accept it, take the learning point, take everything as an experience, and move on and continue praying so that the next experiences that you get will probably be a bit more pleasant, or else less unpleasant than what it could have been. Sorry, there's one comment here from audience. I'm so sorry. This is the last question. Okay, Miss Renuka has asked this question: is there a mantra that we should chant, and some mantras that we should chant also? Because recently my 4.5-year-old is fond of Shiva Tandava Stotram. He keeps listening throughout day and night. Is that okay? Oh, so she's basically asking, is every mantra appropriate for everyone regardless of their age group? I think that's the final question that we should take. Yep. Anybody?
I think it's great. I mean, 4.5 years old, I'm not sure what I was doing, but I mean, this child is. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions, that your consciousness, right, your spiritual consciousness, your spiritual merit that you earn in this life is actually carried on to the next. So she's very fortunate that she has a child who is very divine, is listening to such mantras. So I think it's fine. I mean, I've not come across a mantra, so I don't know the meaning or what, but I feel that there's no harm in it. What's wrong? Yeah.
As an individual, sometimes if I try to attempt to read out new mantras or new shlokas and I know that I'll mispronounce it, there's always a caveat that also say mantrahinam kriyahinam. It says whatever form that I made, I'm sorry, I did that with utmost love and devotion. That's like the biggest caveat. I love that shloka for that. Yoges, you wanted to say something?
No, I think I totally agree. It's so great that a 4.5-year-old wants to listen to Shiva Tandava Stotram. So please go in, right?
Wow.
Let's not restrict when children are keen to learn, and let's pave the way for them to learn things in the right manner. I think we have also mentioned there are a lot of communities out there that are doing very good work. So reach out, check in with them, and let's learn. The important aspect of this bhakti and devotion, right, Karthik, is really helping us with our emotional stability. We invest a lot in terms of intellectual stability, but when hardships hits us, we are not able to handle it. One may be honors grad, double degree, first class, but when hardships hit, sometimes they struggle with it. As much as importance we're giving for intellectual, I think enough and equal importance needs to be given for the emotional stability, and that's where bhakti comes in. Let's not undermine the value of bhakti or the mode of bhakti, like what Ruban very beautifully actually explained before. Kirtans, chantings. Let's not devalue those things. Let's not devalue listening to scriptures, understanding the values, having satsangs with like-minded people. Let's not devalue those things, because those are stepping stones. Yeah.
And those are equally ways of seeking the divine, even in this new normal setting. Ruban, any final words from you?
Like I said before, I believe that whatever process you follow on a daily basis, especially in this lockdown situation, always start out with the purpose. That's what I feel. Like for me, I always remind myself why I'm doing it, because practically speaking, purpose is what drives us both in the material sphere and the spiritual sphere as well. So if you are very in line with with our purpose and we know what we exactly want, everything else will eventually actually fall in place. So we just have to direct all our energy towards that actually. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yoges, yourself, any final words?
I think if you take God as your co-traveler in our journey, a lot of things becomes more manageable.
Right, great. At this point in time, I really want to thank our viewers as well for sharing their views. I think we have got Davamani Prem Kumar here, who has said it's the first time that he has watched such a discussion among our Hindu youth, and he says it's a great work. Thank you so much for your support. Dava Malir has also said the same thing. She says it's an excellent and insightful session with excellent speakers. Thank you to all of us. Thank you so much for your support. And I think with that, I have to also thank the both of you for agreeing to be part of this this
Please don't say that,
discussion.
man.
I'm so sorry. I did tell you guys it's only a 30 to 45 minutes discussion, but as usual, as much as I try to keep the time under my control, it always overruns. And part is maybe because of me, I ask a lot of questions. But thank you so much for taking your time and sharing a lot of your knowledge and experiences and reviews. I think they all really matter. So thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you, Karthik, for the opportunity.
Thank you.